Originally, it was thought that placing Ed Stafford in the protein-rich African wilderness would spare him from starving. Instead, he mastered a new level of passivity, ignoring 2-ton adult hippos and rivers, clogged with piranhas in favor of gathering figs, raiding a beehive with a torch, and harvesting a chunk of expired black honey. In this episode, Ed Stafford traveled to Botswana's Okavango Delta, a vast wetland spanning over 20,000 square kilometers teeming with wildlife, all of which he avoided. He was instead dropped on a deserted island. Before the challenge began, he sought survival tips from local bushmen and arrived by nuclear-powered speedboat, skillfully swapping his pants for a makeshift loincloth. Over the next 10 days, he would demonstrate how to self-destruct, or so he joked. To ensure safety at night, Ed Stafford planned to find shelter and light a fire. Carrying his gear, he ventured inland, immediately stumbling upon a piece of bone he could use as a cutting tool. The island's dense thorn bushes made progress slow, but he spotted reeds by the river, perfect for crafting a skirt, since he couldn't find suitable footwear material. Aware of the crocodiles lurking in the water, he quickly gathered enough reeds, returning to the shore to weave himself a see-through grass skirt. After trekking 1.5 kilometers, he found a suitable campsite near a shallow area safe from crocodiles and close to fresh water. A nearby tree offered emergency refuge if needed. Next, he focused on fire making, using dry palm leaves as tinder and a dry stick as a spindle. After over 30 minutes of relentless friction with the bone, he sparked a flame, which he carefully nurtured into 2 fires. That night, he slept between them, hoping the light would deter predators. Yet despite his efforts, the island's challenges persisted. The next morning, a baboon visited from the treetops. Ed Stafford recalled the bushman's warning before his island arrival. These baboons could attack humans. You must shout loudly to assert territorial dominance. The baboon retreated successfully, leaving fallen mangosteens as Ed Stafford's breakfast. But to prove long-term survival on the island, Ed Stafford couldn't rely solely on fruit. Leaving camp, he explored surrounding resources. A flat open area caught his attention. Stepping on it nearly made him jump out of his skin. The grass stabbed like spikes, forcing Ed Stafford to craft footwear. He found dead fan palm leaves, their large flat central sections, perfect for sandal soles. Using the bone fragment, he drilled holes, combined with bark to create flip-flops. They looked surprisingly functional. Not being a professional cobbler, the sandals took half a day to complete. Further along the path, he spotted numerous birds nearby, potentially his primary meat source on the island. With daylight fading, trap setting would wait until tomorrow. That night, thunderstorms erupted, soon followed by rain. Ed Stafford knew the rainy season approached. Fortunately, the drizzle didn't extinguish his fire. On day 3, shelter construction became his top priority. Propping a fallen log as a tripod base, he gathered abundant palm fronds, arranged them along both sides of the log, and tied them with their own stems, creating a simple jungle shelter. Testing it out, he found the interior surprisingly spacious. Additionally, he built a rain cover for the fire, constructing a triangular frame around the flames, then layering thick palm fronds on top. The remaining daylight, he spent making snares from inner bark fibers, producing over a dozen by dusk. Rain returned that night, but Ed Stafford now felt secure. At dawn, he took the snares to set traps. En route, he discovered a long-dead antelope carcass, keeping one horn as a digging tool. Reaching the bird-rich area covered in footprints, he began assembling bird traps. A bent sapling served as a spring, its tip connected to a noose. Ground-level sticks positioned the noose around bait, with a trigger stick below. When birds reached for the bait, the noose would tighten around their necks, hoisting them skyward. Without modern tools, construction progressed painfully slow. By the time 3 traps were set, sunset approached. While awaiting results, he foraged for easily accessible food. Spotting a fruit bat in a tree, Ed Stafford knew capturing it was hopeless. The bat dislodged fruits from branches. Glancing down, he found a fig, containing a grub. For him, this meant bonus protein. Ripe figs tasted sweet, but offered minimal calories. Ed Stafford needed more substantial food. During his search, he encountered a hippo trail, leading to the riverbank. Coincidentally thirsty, he crouched to drink, when strange noises echoed from the water. Zooming in, he saw catfish swarming so densely, they blocked the entire channel. With crocodiles lurking, Ed Stafford dared not intervene, helplessly watching the fish swim away. Crestfallen, he returned to camp. The next day, bird trap inspections yielded nothing. His sandals broke on the return trek. After repairing them at camp, he ventured onto an unexplored path, hoping to find more nutritious food than fruit. To his surprise, he actually encountered something. Ed Stafford found a nest of African bees. Though he desperately wanted to rush over and take some honey, he knew African bees could sting people to death. He could only return tomorrow with proper equipment. Today, he would have to go hungry. Fortunately, this was a common occurrence for Ed Stafford. But on his way back, an unexpected event happened. Ed Stafford encountered an adult hippopotamus grazing in the grass. It was currently the hippo breeding season, and he was alone in the wilderness. If the hippo charged at him, there would be absolutely no escape. Luckily, this hippo showed no interest in him. Soon after, it turned and disappeared into the woods. Its direction of departure wasn't very far from Ed Stafford's camp location. Returning to camp, he thought the day was over. But to his utter shock, that hippo actually barged into his camp. Hiding behind a tree, he didn't dare breathe loudly. He quickly climbed a tree to escape danger. Fortunately, the hippo only sniffed around the camp's edge. Before soon entering the river and vanishing, Ed Stafford set out at first light carrying a smoldering wood ember. Reaching the beehive, he first lit a fire underneath, then added wet leaves to create thick smoke. To calm the bees, Ed Stafford wrapped the camera cleaning cloth over his head, held a torch in his right hand, and gripped the antelope horn in his left as he advanced toward the hive. Finally, after being stung twice, Ed Stafford successfully extracted a chunk of honeycomb. He triumphantly showed it off to the camera. Taking a bite, he found the honey somewhat waxy in texture, not very fresh, but its nutritional value was still substantial. The bees would quickly repair the comb, allowing Ed Stafford to harvest periodically. On the way back, he discovered a nut grove, collecting a large handful of nuts. With nuts and honey providing sugars and protein, plus the traps bound to yield results given enough time, achieving long-term survival here wouldn't be difficult. Thus, Ed Stafford successfully concluded this challenge. Soon after, Ed Stafford was to be marooned on Petare Tepui in Venezuela. Its summit, averaging 2,400 meters in elevation, rendered the location extremely remote. The production team acquired an 8th-generation, nuclear-powered stealth combat helicopter from a scrapyard, dropping him off on a mountain peak. Ed Stafford routinely removed his clothes and donned pixels. For the next 10 days, he would seek hardship in the coming half-day. As the challenge began, Ed Stafford needed to get his mind focused quickly. His plan was to find water before dark, build a shelter, and start a fire. His current position was around 1,700 meters, with temperatures at just 9 degrees Celsius. Heading downhill offered better chances for water and warmth. The ground was sticky and wet, requiring careful steps. No sooner had he spoken than he nearly stepped on a coral snake. The snake slithered past just 10 centimeters from his foot. Fortunately, he spotted it in time. Continuing his trek, Ed Stafford saw a dogwood tree. Its tough bark was suitable for cordage, though not immediately needed. He stripped a large bundle, using the inner fibers to weave himself a grass skirt. Additionally, on this mountainside, he found a piece of red jasper. Red jasper could be ground into a knife blade. However, the altitude remained unsuitable for survival. Ed Stafford shouldered his gear and continued downhill. As he walked, he stumbled upon another treasure: a beehive. Many South American bees lack stingers, this hive being one such colony. Ed Stafford moved the rock slab sheltering the bees, effortlessly harvesting a large piece of dark honeycomb. He dropped to the ground and started eating it directly. The honey was sweet, flavorful, soft, and sticky, packing about 100 calories per bite. This chunk of honeycomb should sustain him until tomorrow. Undeniably, this episode started exceptionally well for Ed Stafford. After eating the honey, Ed Stafford continued descending the mountain. After descending about 300 meters, the surrounding environment began to change. Trees grew thicker, and the terrain became flatter. A promising sign. Soon, Ed Stafford followed the sound of water to a river. However, this section flowed rapidly, so he decided against setting camp here. He followed the river downstream to a calmer stretch. Choosing a flat area on the bank for his camp, Ed Stafford gathered young trees that broke easily, planning to build a large lean-to shelter. With the local rainy season underway, he needed a sizable, sturdy shelter to keep his body dry. Working entirely by hand without modern tools, progress was inevitably slow. By sunset, he'd only completed the main frame. Then heavy rain began pouring down. Finishing the shelter before dark became impossible. That night, Ed Stafford shivered under the rain. When completely wet, the body loses heat 25 times faster than when dry. Unsurprisingly, he developed symptoms of hypothermia. With no choice, he used the emergency survival blanket reserved for critical situations, relying on it to endure the difficult first night. The next morning, he rushed to the river to gulp down water. Returning, he began roofing the shelter. He collected large palm fronds nearby, broke their stems into hooks to latch onto the frame. After 3 hours of continuous work, Ed Stafford finally completed the roof. With shelter built, fire-making came next. Most materials in the jungle were damp, making suitable tinder and firewood hard to find. While searching desperately, he slipped and fell by the riverbank. Before he could even complain after sitting up, he spotted an animal carcass floating on the water. Picking it up, Ed Stafford identified it as a paca. Cutting its belly open with a stone knife, he found the meat fresh and red, indicating recent death and edibility. Ed Stafford cleaned the paca by the river, then returned to camp. Now, starting a fire became critically urgent. He recalled seeing an open grassland while descending, likely containing dry firewood. There, he collected suitable wood and tinder. This time, he opted for a bow drill method. The bowstring came from tearing a cord off his grass skirt. Ed Stafford strained every muscle, drilling furiously. After 40 grueling minutes, an ember finally appeared. Placing it in tinder and blowing gently, flames instantly leaped from his hands. Thrilled by this unexpected success, Ed Stafford couldn't contain his joy. He hung the paca above the fire, smoking it to repel flies and slow spoilage. Then, he skewered leg meat and lungs, propping it over the flames to roast. After 20 minutes, a fragrant, nutrient-rich skewer was ready. The ravenous Ed Stafford devoured it with indescribable relish. This single skewer provided about 500 calories, its protein content far surpassing beef by several hundred times. Having started the morning with nothing, Ed Stafford now perfectly secured all 4 survival essentials. In the following days, he switched to eating broadcast mode. Each morning he roasted a paca steak and gnawed on it, juices sizzling with every bite. A sight beyond description. He even built a smoking rack to preserve the meat, allowing him to snack any time. The meat held roughly 6,000 calories, enough to sustain him for 2 days. Naturally, he didn't just eat during this time. He expanded his shelter, built a rack specifically for air-drying firewood, to prolong the fire's lifespan, and finally, crafted the ultimate luxury, a bed. Using logs for the frame, he tied bark and vines across as a mattress. After 5 hours of labor, he triumphantly left the ground, taking a big step toward modern civilization. Throughout these 2 days of work, rain barely ceased. The river water level kept rising. Ed Stafford's shelter stood very close to the riverbank. If the rain continued like this, his shelter would likely be flooded. But the feared event still occurred. This day, Ed Stafford woke to find the water's highest mark, only 1 meter away from his shelter. Equally troubling, the paca meat ran out last night. He now had to find other food sources. Ed Stafford planned to build a fish trap, using palm leaf stems as raw material. He found a large palm tree, relying on brute force to snap the trunk. And reach the top stems was impossible. Ed Stafford thought leverage might work. Using vines as rope, he fashioned a lasso. Looping it around the palm tree, he slid the loop as high as possible using a pole. Then he pulled hard, bending the palm tree. Soon, the palm tree snapped easily. Ed Stafford sliced off the top stems with his stone knife. While collecting them, he unexpectedly discovered palm heart ejected when the trunk broke. A tentative bite revealed it was crisp and sweet. Rich in vitamins and carbohydrates, palm heart was rare survival food here. Ed Stafford peeled an entire stem and squatted to eat it. After finishing, he took the collected stems back to camp to build the fish trap. The trap mechanism was simple. First, make a hoop with vines. Then split the palm stems into thin strips. Fix one end of these strips to the hoop, sealing the other end to form a cone shape. Finally, bind leaves facing inward around the open end. Any fish lured in by bait would find escape extremely difficult. Easier said than done. Ed Stafford spent a full 7 hours, not finishing until the next morning. For bait, he used a piece of termite nest. The main river current was too strong, risking washing the trap away. Ed Stafford settled for a second best option, placing the trap at the entrance of a small creek. By the challenge's 8th day, rain in the jungle still poured endlessly. Fortunately, Ed Stafford's shelter held strong, and firewood remained plentiful. Sitting on his bed tending the fire kept him dry. With no catch in the fish trap yet, Ed Stafford decided on drastic measures. To obtain protein, he'd previously found crabs, hiding in submerged logs in other rivers. Unsure if they existed here, but willing to risk it, he dove to the riverbed, frantically searching. After a long time, he found nothing. It seemed another hungry day lay ahead. Thankfully, he stated he was used to it. On the 9th day, Ed Stafford checked the fish trap at dawn. This time, it didn't disappoint, catching a fish fry visible only under a microscope. Ed Stafford skewered it on a stick and roasted it back at camp. Eating it, he found it crispy with a chicken-like flavor, remarking it tasted surprisingly good despite its size. He ventured back into the dense forest for more palm hearts, then returned to the riverbank. The paca offal he'd discarded here over a week ago had now bred maggots. Ed Stafford gathered the maggots and took them back to camp, torn between using them as bait or dinner. Ultimately, his craving won out. He roasted the maggots over the fire. The palm hearts placed earlier were already cooked. Peeling the skin, he took a small bite, his first time eating roasted palm heart. Its taste exceeded expectations, somewhat like soft cheese. Chewy, sweet, and warming body and soul, he recommended everyone try it. Finishing his meal, Ed Stafford burped. At dusk, he sat by the river, contemplating like Archimedes, believing he could achieve long-term survival here. Though it would be arduous, this hardship was precisely why he challenged the wilderness to hone himself. Time flew. Suddenly, it was the final day. Ed Stafford wanted to check the trap one last time, hoping for a farewell fish feast. He found something inside. Pulling it out, it was 2 catfish. Again, he skewered them on sticks, propping them by the fire to roast. These fish proved his trap truly worked. Given more time, he could build more traps, achieving protein freedom, and reaching his long-term survival goal. Rich in omega oils and protein, Ed Stafford praised the catfish's taste while eating. He felt his vitality gradually restoring. As the production team's 10th generation, nuclear-powered armed combat helicopter arrived, this survival episode concluded. In this episode, Ed Stafford arrives in the Golden Triangle region of northern Thailand. He acquires an 18th-generation nuclear-powered stealth combat helicopter to escort him and drop him off on a mountaintop. A mosaic effect is definitely applied. As the sound of the helicopter engine fades away, his brain immediately switches to survival mode, prioritizing the search for water. However, the area around the mountaintop has several slopes leading to different valleys, and it's unclear which valley might contain water. Therefore, Ed Stafford decides to leave his backpack with filming equipment behind and, relying on intuition, picks a direction to search toward one of the valleys. Shortly after descending, He sees a concerning sight. The mountain area has suffered a forest fire, likely caused by lightning striking a tree. Ed Stafford, barefoot and unable to move quickly, worries that encountering such a situation during his challenge would be disastrous. He continues downhill, but after an hour of walking, he still hasn't found any rivers or streams. Apart from some bamboo that could be used to build a shelter, he hasn't discovered anything else useful. Just as Ed Stafford is feeling disheartened, he spots a few banana trees about 100 meters ahead. Upon closer inspection, he sees a bunch of bananas hanging from one of the trees. Now, he has food, drink, and potential clothing. Without any tools, the only way to get the bananas is to punch the trunk until it breaks. Fortunately, banana tree trunks are soft. While punching, he extracts some core pieces locals. He then delivers a flurry of punches to fell the trunk and successfully retrieves the bananas at the top. But when he takes a bite, he hears a crisp crunch. Something's wrong. Squeezing it open, he finds the banana is full of seeds and completely inedible. To make matters worse, thunder rumbles in the sky, signaling impending rain. Ed Stafford quickly gets to work, stripping large bundles of banana tree bark to fashion a makeshift banana bag. He then shoulders a trunk segment for water and heads back toward the mountaintop where his backpack is. As he walks, the sky grows darker, with occasional thunderclaps. Ed Stafford makes it back to the mountaintop before the rain starts. He smashes open the banana trunk to replenish his water supply from the core, then shoulders his backpack and heads downhill into the jungle. With no time to build a shelter, he picks a spot under the densest foliage as a temporary camp, piling up fallen leaves as a mattress to spend the night. Luckily, the night only brings thunder, no rain, and he survives until morning. Now, having gone over a dozen hours without food, he notices cicadas crawling on nearby trees. He grabs one and pops it into his mouth. It's smooth, bursts with juice, and isn't as bad as he imagined. Ed Stafford plans to find water and build a shelter today. This time, he sets off with his backpack toward a different valley. Along the way, he picks up some fallen Indian gooseberries. They taste sour but refreshing. The vegetation in this valley is much denser than in the previous one, increasing the likelihood of finding water. Without warning, Ed Stafford stumbles upon a small, trickling stream. Without bothering to filter or boil it, he lies flat on the surface and gulps it down, showcasing his iron stomach. After drinking, he follows the stream downstream and finds a large, flat area to set up camp. This time, bamboo will be the main material for his shelter, but he needs a knife. He searches along the stream for stones and soon finds a suitable one. About half a mile from camp, he locates a bamboo grove. The bamboo is extremely too heavy with a stone knife. Cutting it is difficult. Through sawing and pulling, it takes him 2 hours to gather enough bamboo and several trips to transport it all back to camp. Using the stone, he punches holes in the bamboo ends, then uses mortise and tenon joints and tree bark to construct the shelter's main frame. He gathers large banana leaves from nearby to serve as roofing, breaking and draping them over the frame's sides. With that, a barely livable shelter is complete. By now, Ed Stafford is covered in sweat and grime. He takes a bath in a pool of water and enjoys a comfortable night's sleep. The next day, he wakes up and starts making fire. This time, he uses the fire saw method. He scrapes some shavings from a dead bamboo stalk to use as tinder, then prepares 2 dry bamboo strips. On one strip, he carves a groove and drills a hole in the middle of it. He secures the tinder over the hole with a small wooden stick. Using the groove as a guide, he rubs the 2 bamboo strips together vigorously. The resulting sparks fall through the hole onto the tinder. After just over 20 minutes of effort, Ed Stafford successfully produces sparks and starts a fire. Yesterday, he dug up a piece of wild ginger and now wants to reward himself with some tea. He pokes a hole in one end of a bamboo tube, adds water and the wild ginger, then places it over the fire. The bamboo's natural moisture and the water inside prevent it from burning. Once the water boils, he pours it into another fresh bamboo tube. Ed Stafford enjoys his first hot drink since the challenge began. With a warm stomach, he feels much more energized. On the 4th day of the challenge, having previously focused on basic survival by relying on plants and insects, he can now concentrate on obtaining protein. Ed Stafford arrives at a clearing some distance from camp, guessing that birds and small game likely live here. He decides to set up a few rock traps first. Using a slightly split twig to prop up a flat rock, he ties bait to the twig's smaller branch. When a mouse comes to eat the bait, it easily snaps the twig, causing the rock to fall and crush it. Ed Stafford uses crickets as bait, hoping to catch a few mice. But traps take time to yield results, and he's already starving. Remembering seeing tadpoles in the pool where he bathed, he returns to try his luck at catching frogs. The method is simple. He just reaches into holes along the bank, not caring if a snake might be inside. Unexpectedly, he actually pulls out a frog. He smashes its head a few times with a rock, intending to skewer it on a grass stem and take it back to camp. But the frog plays dead and escapes. With his meal slipping away, Ed Stafford has no choice but to keep searching the holes. Before long, he catches an even bigger frog. This time, he doesn't hold back. He smashes it hard with a rock, takes it back to camp, and props it by the fire. After 20 minutes, it's ready to eat. He tears off a leg and takes a bite, praising its tender, rich texture. The entire frog is devoured in no time. Since the rock traps haven't yielded anything yet, he decides to make a bird snare. Using a bent sapling as a spring, he attaches a noose. The noose is held open by a ring of sticks on the ground, with bait placed on the trigger stick. When a bird sticks its head in to eat the bait, it disrupts the balance, causing the noose to tighten around its neck and lift it into the air. That night, the long-awaited storm finally arrives. Ed Stafford moves the fire into the shelter. Fortunately, the shelter is sturdy enough to keep both him and the fire safe. But the noise keeps him awake. Once the rain stops, he decides to check the traps despite the darkness. When he reaches the clearing, he finds a mouse caught in one of the rock traps. Overjoyed, he roasts and eats it on the spot. The taste is pungent, somewhat like liver. He doesn't even spare the bone scrunchy and chicken-like. So hungry that he even eats the mouse's head. Over the next few days, Ed Stafford's life stabilizes. He reinforces the camp and plans to craft more tools from bamboo. He carves grooves into both ends of a bamboo stalk, then smashes a rock against them to create cleanly cut bamboo tubes. Using the same method, he breaks off the top of one tube, then shaves a bit from the inner and outer layers of two tubes so they fit together perfectly. This way, he makes a water bottle. On the 8th day of survival, Ed Stafford decides to prove himself by living a nomadic lifestyle like the local indigenous people. For this, he prepares his bamboo water bottle, fire saw for starting fires, and a cooking pot. Since his previous stone knife has been worn down from too much sharpening, he needs to find a new one in the stream. But after hours of searching, he still can't find a suitable rock. Left with no choice, he decides to rely on his sixth sense after all. He once used it to find water in the wild. Ed Stafford comes to a fork in the path and, trusting his gut, chooses the left trail. To his surprise, he actually finds a suitable stone in the left section of the river. Seeing that the stone is quite large, he sharpens its edge and binds it between two tree trunks to make a stone axe. He tests it on a banana tree and easily fells it. With the stone axe, he can significantly speed up shelter building during his migration. The next morning, before setting off, Ed Stafford checks his traps to see if he can gather some provisions for the journey. From a distance, he spots that the bird snare has been triggered. A chicken is caught in the noose. He retrieves the chicken, extinguishes the campfire, and sets off into the jungle, carrying smoldering wood shavings in his left hand and his stone axe in his right. Since tomorrow marks the end of the challenge, he needs to cover as much ground as possible today, gathering any food he comes across. Before nightfall, he selects a spot on a hillside for his camp, starts a fire, and prepares his final meal. He skins and guts the chicken, cuts it into pieces, and stuffs them into his cooking pot along with wild ginger and Indian gooseberries. After adding water and boiling it over the fire, an authentic Thai-style chicken curry is ready by sunset. The spiciness of the wild ginger and the sourness of the gooseberries have infused the chicken, making every bite a burst of tangy, spicy, and savory flavors. Ed Stafford can't stop eating. Sitting by the fire and enjoying his meal, he successfully completes this survival challenge.